Why do we run buffer cars in our tank car trains? That's what we're going to talk about today. Buffer cars, coming right up. Hi, I'm Roy Smith. We have talked about tank car trains in previous videos, and you will see tank car trains running on my layout again today. But we have never really talked much about the buffer cars appearing in those trains. So that's what we're going to do in this video today. I plan to ask 4 questions about buffer cars in this video, and in response, I hope that you will share your knowledge and experience about them in the comments section down below. On my layout, tank car trains normally run as unit trains. Tank cars seldom appear in mixed freight trains. You will recall from previous videos that all of the cars in a unit train are of the same type and all of them haul the same product. The cars in unit trains are not switched at classification yards along the way. They run as a unit from their origin to their destination. I have never worked for a real railroad, so I don't know from personal experience the answers to the 4 questions that I am about to ask. But I do a lot of research because I want to know how the prototype that I am modeling operates, and I want to try to replicate that on my layout. So here are the 4 questions that I'm going to ask in this video. 1. What are buffer cars and how are they used? 2. What kinds of cars can be used as buffer cars? 3. What are buffer cars loaded with? And 4. Why might there be a buffer car at the end of a tank car train? Okay, let's get started. Question number 1. What are buffer cars and how are they used? Buffer cars are used to separate locomotives from cars hauling hazardous materials on a train. They are supposed to help protect the onboard crew in the event of a derailment and explosion of the tank cars. They separate the tank cars from sources of ignition in the locomotives. Certainly not all tank cars haul hazardous materials. I understand that even diesel fuel is considered to be combustible, but not explosive or otherwise hazardous. Therefore, trains hauling diesel fuel may not be required to use buffer cars in their consist. By contrast, other products such as gasoline, liquefied petroleum gas, and ethanol are considered to be hazardous materials, and tank cars hauling these products may be considered dangerous even after they have been emptied because of hazardous residue that may still be in them. Question number 2. What kind of cars can be used as buffer cars? Most of the buffer cars that I've seen on real trains are covered hoppers, and that's what I prefer to run on my layout. I understand that box cars, gondolas, bulkhead flat cars, and even tank cars can be used as buffer cars. But it does seem that most buffer cars are old covered hoppers that have been retired from regular freight service. I understand that federal regulations require railroads to use at least 1 buffer car between locomotives and cars transporting hazardous materials. Question number 3. What are buffer cars loaded with? Buffer cars are not empty. They are loaded with non-hazardous, inert material such as sand or pebbles. I don't know if it's true, but I have even heard that tank cars filled with water might be used as buffer cars. I guess the point is, buffer cars don't have to be covered hoppers loaded with sand, but that seems to be the most common type of buffer car on railroads, and it certainly is the most common type of buffer car on my layout. Question number 4. Why might there be a buffer car at the end of a tank car train? If a tank car train has locomotives at both ends of the train, then understandably a buffer car would be used at both ends of the train. But what if a tank car train has no distributed power units or helpers at the end of the train? What then? I have heard that many railroads do not use distributed power units or DPUs at the end of tank car trains. I have also heard that if a tank car train has a DPU at the end of the train and the DPU is removed from the train for whatever reason, then any buffer cars at the end of the train should be moved to the front of the train. I have often seen tank car trains with no buffer cars at the end of the train, and I have often seen them with buffer cars at the end. So I've been running tank car trains on my layout both with and without buffer cars at the end of my trains. Why would railroads have buffer cars at the end of a train if there are no locomotives at the end of the train? Well, perhaps a DPU or helper will be added to the end of the train later on when the train reaches steeper grades. Or perhaps they are there so that after a train reaches its destination, the lead locomotives can simply do a runaround to the rear of the train for the return trip without needing to switch the buffer car, in which case the rear buffer car would become the lead buffer car. I have also heard that buffer cars can be placed at the end of tank car trains in case of a rear-end collision. Here then are the 4 questions that I posed in this video. What are buffer cars and how are they used? What kinds of cars can be used as buffer cars? What are buffer cars loaded with? And why might there be a buffer car at the end of a tank car train? I would love to know how you run buffer cars on your layout. And if you work for a real railroad, I would love to know how your railroad uses them. I encourage you to share your knowledge and experience about buffer cars in the comments section down below. And if you are here for the first time, I hope you will consider subscribing to this channel by clicking on the red subscribe button down below. I upload new videos every Saturday morning, and I don't want you to miss any of them. So, until next time, happy railroading. I will see you again very soon.